I think this is also one of the most anticipated panel for today, since we would wrap up with key thoughts on Gaming 3.0, and I have a very distinguished lineup here with me. So guys, if you could briefly introduce yourself, and then we can just kickstart the panel, starting with Matt.
I just gave like a 30-minute introduction, so I'm
okay,
Matt.
be very brief. You have 30 seconds now.
Yeah, I'm Matt. I'm the head of engineering at Solana Foundation. Heavy concentration on games. My background is in games. I worked for Riot Games and Unity Technologies in my past.
Hi, I'm Renz, CEO and co-founder of BUIDL. For most of you who don't know what BUIDL is, we basically call ourselves like a factory of the metaverse. If you have guilds supplying player liquidity, then we, on the other hand, provides assets to a lot of these guilds.
All right. All right, hi guys, I'm Luke from Polygon Studios. I focus on like BD and partnerships for NFTs and gaming. Yeah, I focus a lot on NFTs and gaming mainly because I was like in that DGen rabbit hole looking at a lot of PFP collections, and I'm a massive sports fan as well. So I was always working closely with like sports agencies and agents, and now they're all transitioning to Web3 as well. So it's kind of like a marriage of my favorite interests.
So hi everyone, my name is Ronnie. I'm from KryptoVietnam, product manager from KryptoVietnam. Interestingly, I spent most of my professional life in off-chain things. I just moved to on-chain recently. And as KryptoVietnam, we're doing this turn-based game, as well as like the first calf game deployed on Avalanche subnet. So yeah, that's briefly about me.
So my name is Nicole. I'm the co-organizer of this conference. I also co-founded a Web3 community called APAC DAO, and we have over 1,000 members and 500 projects in the GameFi, NFT, and Metaverse in Asia Pacific. And I'm a very avid gamer, so that's why I'm very honored to be the moderator today to listen to your advice and your thoughts. So before I plan to kickstart this with a very tricky question, but maybe let's go very easy on you first. Renz just mentioned to me that I should not address this like as a GameFi panel. What do you think about GameFi? Is it not the buzzword anymore? Like, you know, what are your guys' thoughts on this?
So maybe I should start. Well, I feel like GameFi as a term is quite controversial in a sense, because it's basically gamification, gamifying and financialization, right? But when we look at gaming, it's not just supposed about financialization or the economic aspect of it, right? Games are supposed to be fun. Games are supposed to be entertaining. We talk about play to earn game as though like the main function of these games and the main function of these projects are mainly to provide economic incentive to people. But as mentioned before, a lot of people already looked into different or a lot of people get attracted to a lot of games in various means. People can be motivated by income, but more and more people are incentivized actually by the actual game, right? And so putting like, or like reducing Web3 gaming to like GameFi is just targeting a specific cohort of individuals, which essentially we don't want to just keep on like cascading and just reducing the potential of the space too. So yeah.
Okay. Anyone want to add on to that?
Sure, I'll take a crack. I think the problem, like as he's saying, the other underlying game has to be great. I think the financialization can add to the gameplay. Like people were trading all the time in MMOs, and people find it fun to like kind of optimize and game the markets and all that stuff. I think the aspects that has really become problematic is when you can mint tokens, people kind of get carried away with that aspect of it, and it can become incredibly unsustainable. So like if your whole game is built around that, it's just hard to just understand like, well, where is, that's kind of what I said in my talk, like where is people just delightfully paying for something, and then it can even enhance the GameFi elements. But the GameFi elements, just like normal economies, should be enhancing an existing economy, and it's really hard to have that existing economy without the underlying game that people are wanting to pay to in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I guess my next question would be about the topic of the panel today. I'm not very confident talking about Gaming 3.0, I guess because we are talking about Web 3.0, so Gaming 3.0 seems to be like the next narrative, right? But I also want to, bounce this question to you. Do you think we are already like approaching gaming 3.0, or are we bouncing back to gaming 2.0? Maybe Luke, if you want to take this question first, and Ronnie.
Yeah, sure. I would say we are kind of like in the midpoint, especially due to like market conditions as well. Maybe during the bull market when everything was moving so quickly, and with like the meta all like changing like every month or so, I would say that everyone was really very positive on like everything being on chain and all of that. But I would say that future is still a little bit far away. Right now, I think what we're trying to do, or what a lot of people are trying to do, is to really bring, like what you mentioned as well, the fun aspect back to gaming. So it's like, as cliche as it sounds, it's still more of like play and earn, because you want to focus on the playing aspect, and the earning aspect becomes secondary. And so that's why a lot of like maybe AAA studios or Web2 game companies, they are currently looking at the Web3 space, and they're hoping to build their first ever Web3 game to look exactly like their Web2 game, just that, players get to own like certain aspects of the game. So not everything will be on chain, but maybe like their NFT avatar or like their NFT character, and then they get to like kind of like have that experience of minting and owning their achievements on chain to make it like immutable, such that if the game progresses to a next title or an extension, you won't lose the track record of all your gaming achievements as well, which is something that gamers might complain about when we move from, like, example, like Call of Duty 1 to Call of Duty 2. Yeah.
I kind of share some common thoughts on that, and I think we are still in the early days of game development for Web3. One of the main reasons is, as you guys already mentioned, we have kind of sustainability issue where people are just thinking about play and earn. A lot of the game elements is missing, the fun engagement, the sustainability is kind of missing from the current games 3.0. And to move there, I think it's going to be taking some time. I mean, like, we don't know what the future holds, but with the technology, it enables us a lot of things, right? So we're moving from pay upfronts for the game version, which is like CD-ROM, flippy disk, as you guys know, in the back of the days. And now we have like subscription model in the mobile gaming. So the technology definitely improved and helping us to enable some future and possibility. And to be there to say we are moving back or moving forward, I would say we're moving forward, but the speed, it has to take some time.
So I think we talk about the market, about the gaming 2.0 or 3.0. I think in this kind of bear market, people have said that, it's very unfortunate, but also like, luckily we have some time to actually sit down and talk about this. I'm pretty sure in the boom run, it's almost impossible to gather you guys here to sit down and talk about something like gaming 3.0. So I think the next question would be about this building, especially in this bear market. And you guys can see that the panelists here, they represent different ecosystems. So we can have a very interesting, diverse thoughts on how you would be able to build on different ecosystems and whether interoperability is really important at this stage or not. So the question is, what is your experience on, like, let's say, what's your advice on what the games should focus on building, especially in this bear market? And maybe if you have some more perspective on with your ecosystem, that would be great. Maybe we can start with Rans and Matt.
Okay, so I think during the bull market and when Axie Infinity experienced that boom, right? Majority of the game kind of copied the same model as Axie Infinity. So there was like a time where everyone just followed the same framework, where you initially release an NFT, and then after some months, you then release like, your game, but it's mostly like the same game, right? And the key to being or earning within the game is to come in early and then exit at the right time. So that was kind of like the model that existed or that dominated the industry during that time. And what's interesting right now is that because there's no kind of rush in terms of like pushing this out there, because during that time, like the first to rush, the first to build or the first to produce in the market, even though it's all the same, right, gets like the highest users, gets like the highest money, right, and the most money rather. So right now, we're taking a step back and really looking at and thinking things, right? So what exactly do we want to build, right? What exactly is the type of genre of games that we want to produce? Who exactly do we want to target? Previously, it was mostly the same participants just jumping from one game to another, just like DeFi Summer, right? You would jump from one yield farm to another just to be able to maximize the games. And it's also because of this that there's already new forms of like campaigns that are happening right now. We've shifted from play to earn to play and earn. Now there's this new concept of like a free to own, right? And the truth of the matter is nobody really knows like how exactly this is going to evolve. People are now experimenting, but because there's no real rush to push a product out there, then we have time to do proper experimentation, do proper analysis, do proper research, and even talk to our consumers, talk to the people who are really going to be the ones playing the game. And that for me is like the essence of building, like building something for a specific user or specific users, instead of just pushing a product just because that's what existed or that's what worked from before.
So he said a really important thing, that there is no rush. And I don't know if anybody here is part of the last cycle, like my company died in, but it was very different in 2017 to 2018 crash. Most of the money back then was made through ICOs. Everybody was doing like $30 million and then you ICO or whatever. And then, but that was paid through Ethereum. There wasn't much VC money coming into the system, at least not nearly as much as now, especially like within our ecosystems. There's some very well capitalized games that have money in, you know, bank accounts. So they're continuing to build. And the other interesting thing is the rest of the market is down. FANG is down, you know, like a lot of other tech is down. So the competition for talent has actually moved more towards the new innovative technology, so hiring is way easier. So that has given a little bit of buffer for these Web3 games to really think about their plays. And it doesn't feel like as much as there is a rush or this is like some crazy bear, it's like this is build time. And I also think that's why we probably feel a bit less competitive with each other than it may appear on the outside. We're kind of in this together now where we're trying to figure out what is actually going to compete with Web 2. Yeah, so then what to concentrate on, like I guess maybe unique on Solana. So not necessarily composability across games on Solana, it's the composability with the tools, which frankly is basically could have been the subject of my talk. But yeah, so how do you use some on-chain code that other people have built to enhance my experience? What's going to rising waters raise all boats? What are my users going to be able to do on the blockchain that I wouldn't, or I would have had to build myself, or would have been harder for me to build, or honestly, some of it wasn't even really possible. Like think about those aspects and have it, yeah, translate to your experience. I will though say though, there is one level of composability that is actually going on Polygon. They have a Ready Player Me, which is an avatar play, and the entire play is that the avatars can be used across games. And I think there's even like 4 or 5 games on Solana that are using that. So composability itself is happening. You don't have to carry stats in that specific framework, but it is affecting the content. So your content pipeline may be cheaper. So there's a lot of interesting plays that are going around across. So I would think about it from a really broad approach.
Yeah, I actually really agree with what both of you guys said. And I mean, no one likes the bear market in that sense, but I would say that if there's an advantage to the bear market is that there's a lot less noise in the current market. So it's easier to kind of reach out to your respective communities that you are trying to target as well, and to really hear what people want to see being built in the space. And for games, I think they're also trying to focus on like, you know, onboarding non-crypto natives as well. So they're moving towards like trying to bring on-chain elements to like mobile phone games and making it like smooth and simple as well, rather than just focusing on like yield farming or other forms of like staking functions as well. Yeah, but I mean, there are a lot of like, you know, gaming or NFT projects that who might not have communicated their roadmap properly in the recent months, even though it might be a really good roadmap. But when they do not put the community as like the primary like focus or importance as well, sometimes it just doesn't execute the way that they want it to. Even recently, like some NFT projects, they have like some discussions about like VC funding. One of the projects maybe handled it a little bit better, and like the community like responded like in the same way as well. So there's a lot of other NFT projects who are very ambitious, or gaming projects that are very ambitious. They want to have like esports teams and everything. But if you're not doing it through like maybe the right medium, the platform, or just constant communication with the people who are interested, then I think it's really hard to execute as well.
I have, maybe you can share a little bit about the end user experience in this topic, because you guys talking about, how the game is going to be running and building, right? So to my experience, back in the days, when you buy a game or you actually download a copy of a game on whatever the platform you choose, the onboarding is pretty simple. You land into the game, you open it, you run it, you land into the game, you start playing with some basic onboarding tutorials and everything, like a mission. Blockchain games or on-chain game is a little bit more different. The complexity is there to onboard a player. The ability to let someone who's like familiar with traditional game to be landed immediately to Web3 game is get familiar with the wallet, understand what is the balance, how to transfer, how to preach, how to submit an action, how to track the data on-chain is something completely new, and the learning curve is definitely high for someone who's not familiar to the technology, right? So I think onboarding is something as a challenge, first of all, to onboard a game, assuming your game is interesting enough that people want to be onboarded, right? And the second element is when the game is actually ran. So for example, in Crypto, I wouldn't say the focus or the main focus, but the challenge is real when you want to sustain the player's experience. You don't want your turnover rate to be really high. You just don't want to, get the players onboarding, they spend some money and they leave the platform. You want to grow the platform, you want to grow the game. And the community is definitely important. Why? Because, for example, you have tools built by community using your integrated data from your chain, right? So this is something that is also important. And I think these are the challenges ahead of us, assuming your game is interesting.
Sorry. So I think there are two narratives that we can pick out from the sharing of the panelists. The first one I think is composability and partnership, which is definitely a luxury in bull run, because I think this is not going to happen actually. If everyone can just raise money for the games, in just a matter of seconds, right? And the second point is about what Ronnie mentioned. So we are like going back to the very fundamentals, like in Web3, Web2 style, with UX and also with the way that we target the users. And what Ron has mentioned as well, we need to really kind of curate and know who we are targeting. So the next question would be also more about this Web2 kind of world, right? So for now, I think pretty much all of the games or, blockchain games, we are now looking more at the non-crypto users. Do you think we are having a competition with Web2 gaming studios now that a lot of them are jumping into this Web3 space? Do you see potentials, opportunities, or do you see more competition in this sense? Who would be able to tackle this question first?
Hopefully all of us. I kind of hope there's just like basically no difference in a not too reasonable time frame. Like the user experiences can get better and better as wallets figure out their onboarding flows. There's just so many different parts of the stack that need to be gradually improved. Consumer protection, onboarding, regulatory. It's not just any one thing when there's this much novelty in the space. And so as different entities, and the cool thing about it is there's really smart people at each of those phases of the stack that are trying to help them. And so it's not like Krabata isn't alone in trying to solve these issues, which is kind of that's what I think Web3 is that it's not just Krabata trying to it's a leading game in crypto, I don't know but there's other people building wallets that are EVM compatible that they'll be able to use if they come out and they solve that problem. And the fact that you're using the same primitives and the same transactions and all these things is that we're kind of in this together to figure out these problems. And so there are a lot of them across a lot of the phases of the stack, but we have a lot of people that can work together. I think that's so yes, I think we are, that Web3 ethos is not the Web2 ethos. I don't know if you've noticed.
For me, what's nice about this entire Web2 gaming studios entering the space is that people are now just people don't want to be just compared across Web3 gaming, right? So if you tell me that I'm good for a blockchain game, then I feel insulted, right? As a game studio or a Web3 game studio, right? Because you're not supposed to compare me with just this level of gaming, right? And the assumption is that, you know, Web3 gaming is inferior compared to all the other games out there, just because of the added layer of economics. But that's not the whole point. Like, gaming itself is like gaming, right? And you should be leveled across like games that people are actually playing right now, and not because like, you know, you're economic superior or like, you know, overall like you're more sustainable compared to the rest. And for me, it is a great opportunity, right? Just like when Apple announced that, you know, they're already allowing NFTs to be sold on their platform, people are saying it's actually a step back because, you know, the 30% haircut is actually taxing to the community because we're going back, comparing that to OpenSea's 2.5%, right? But that actually is free, I guess, publicity for a lot of us here, right? And there's no one stopping people from actually listing on OpenSea, but it onboards a lot of users who are unfamiliar with wallet creation, with, you know, anything that has to do with blockchain from entering the space, right? So, yeah, for me, it actually comes as an opportunity, a huge opportunity at that, and it also gives confidence, right? That what blockchain really offers to gaming is real, and we might, you know, improve the process altogether just because like these studios are not thinking about it. And before, if there's like a framework that we're looking at in order to perceive ourselves as like a blockchain gaming, then now that we're already introduced with new set of competitors who understands gaming, or really understands gaming, right? And not just, you know, the blockchain side of it, then we're more inclined to push ourselves to develop this further such that we would level ourselves and we would actually push out games that are now more, that can now appeal to a lot more audiences.
Yeah, I think the both of you really touched on like pretty much like a lot of the points as well. But I found what you said really interesting about the Apple news. I think that's something that we really I think as a whole want for like crypto to enter like mainstream adoption and mainstream media as well. So even if the news is like gets like mixed response, it's still kind of like a big step forward with like big Web2 players adopting the technology as well. And I mean, with gaming studios like kind of like trying to produce their first ever blockchain game in this year and the coming years as well, I think we are headed in the right direction. But there are also a lot of big players in the scene that are a little bit more conservative, and I think for them it's really just trying to figure out the why reason for using a blockchain rather than just maybe creating a blockchain game to enter a new market as well, because they might already be very successful and dominant in the Web2 industry. But ultimately, I think if the community or the players, you know, once we have a few of these games getting rolled out and being like tested by like the non-crypto natives as well, and if it gets a good response, I think it will eventually kind of trend towards more and more games being on Web3, or at least a good hybrid of both.
I would touch a little bit on that. I think it's a very interesting point of view to say why would, you know, traditional games want to do something on blockchain, right? The why is really important. As long as they are profitable, what would be the reason for them to do so? And just come back to the question a little bit, I think it's the ecosystem that we're trying to have. Obviously, for Game 2.0 to move to Web3, they need blockchain experience or an expertise. Definitely, that's something they are not, you know, at least at this stage, having the advantage of. And for blockchain developers or developments, we definitely need the gaming experience. And I'm not sure how about you guys, but to me, when I try the blockchain games, I don't find the game that's that appealing in terms of content and the game loop.
The ones in development are
So to me, there's the ecosystem, and we need each other. Like the game need the blockchain expertise and vice versa. So this is keep it short.
Okay, I think we are coming to the very last question of the panel. We have a lot of takeaways from your sharing already, but I think we need to be, I also want you to be very brief about, let's say, what are some of your wise words, the advice, what you have learned from both the uptrend and downtrend to share back with the audience. I'm pretty sure this will be the last or the first thing that they will remember tomorrow. But so let's try to make it memorable. Like, think about it carefully, what you would tell them, so that they will remember from this panel.
I think if there's anything in this kind of like community approach thing, as we mentioned, Apple charging 30%. Part of the Solana mobile stack, the entire reason that we're producing the stack is because we kind of saw that coming. So the Solana mobile stack has the security things, but it also comes with a zero fee app store. It's just a standard app, Android app, and it also is going to be on the phone that we produce, but also it's going to be in the Google Play Store. And so it's just going to have a bunch of crypto apps, not just Solana, but it's going to have a zero-fee app store. And we need I don't even care if we don't make any money, it's literally zero fees. So I don't care who it is, somebody needs to get adoption on mobile of an app store. We need to be pushing it together, figuring out ways, because that's going to matter more than a lot of things. Is we need to unlock mobile. So the Solana mobile stack makes it more secure to operate on mobile, and it makes it more user-friendly to work on mobile, and we can work together on that as well because it's an open source stack. But we also just need to be doing fundamental things as an industry around working together to find like, hey, which app store is, compelling to people, whatever. I don't know how they're going to do it. Is it going to be some fun gamification? Is it going to be some fun guild tools? I don't know what it is, but we need to be working together to find that out because there's billions of consumers that basically only use mobile, and if we can't get on mobile, we're not going to see the mass adoption.
Yeah, for me, towards a more general gaming idea, right? When free-to-play first started, and it was a concept that kind of supposedly revolutionized this entire industry, right? Or at least the gaming industry. The games that were built under the free-to-play category weren't as great to begin with, right? And because it was free, right? They had no money to actually, fund the development of the project, and people thought that, that's the end of free-to-play. Roblox and Minecraft were developed in 2006 and 2011, but it's only recent that we've heard about them, right? And titles right now may not have that initial traction compared to the more popular ones such as League of Legends or Dota, right? And Krabada may not be as appealing to consumers right now, or even actually to the broader audience, right? But who's to say that 5 years, 10 years down the line, these titles, these IPs wouldn't be the talk of the town, right? So I feel like at the moment, sure, there's not much value, there's not much appeal, there's not much attraction, but the value is really here. We see a lot of people pouring money in. People are saying that this bear market is actually very different from the last because it's not completely dead. You can see a lot of huge names still pouring in money and still entering the space despite not experiencing that huge movements or that huge upward cycles. And so for me, we can't discredit the fact that the entire blockchain gaming is useless just because the initial variants of these games aren't as appealing to the entire gaming community, right? It will take time, and this time that we have is actually a time for us to grow, to innovate, and that's what we're going to do for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point. And yeah, adoption really takes time, especially when the technology is kind of like a breakthrough technology. I mean, when iPhone first came out, people were saying how can a phone work without a physical keyboard? And look where we are now as well. So, I mean, hopefully it will be the same for blockchain gaming as well. In the next couple of years, there'll be more and more mass adoption. But if there's anything that maybe game developers or people who are thinking of building a new gaming project should consider is to really ensure that the community is rooted. You're really focused on community building, and also focus on the playable aspect, to ensure that the game is really fun to play with, because otherwise it will never be sustainable, and you end up having the same few people just kind of hopping onto the game, and then they'll hop from game to game just to maybe make a quick buck or just try out some mechanics of the game. I think right now a lot of people focus maybe a little bit too much on tokenomics, like token velocity, how often the token changes hands, or token consumption as well. Just trying to think of use cases for tokens like breeding, farming, all of these things. But I feel if the game is fun to play, just how people are spending thousands of dollars on a game right now as well, traditional gaming titles. So the community will last and the gameplay will be sustainable. So if you focus on that aspect, I think the rest will follow through as well.
Well, this one is a challenging question for the end. To my experience, of course, I'm not here forever. I'm not really an expert, but in game industry it's interesting because during the DAO uptrend, I guess everything you do is kind of right. Even both situation applies. When you are in the uptrend situation and the application of new flows, new features, do crazy ideas, visualizing them tend to be adopted real quickly by the community, and vice versa. When you do also at the downtrend and when you look at things in a different angle, you want to do things also a little bit weird. I think people won't complain that much. I hope, but it's also the experimental kind of things that you want to roll out to the community, to your own community, right? And I think in the industry as a whole is a lot different, but I'm just speaking from the game experience, is the ability to try and scale and also like experimenting things is very, very important among up or down trend. And I think not only for us here in the industry, but a lot of people who's like playing casual games as well, their taste or their appetite changes like almost very frequently, right? So you don't know what works today might not work tomorrow and vice versa. So it's just important that we look into what is happening right now. If you cannot adopt, you need to create a need. So this is my recommend.
So I think there are a couple of important points about, let's say, the game should be more, let's say, user-centric. It doesn't just mean, like about experiences for the gamers, but also like from what Luke has mentioned, building the community around the users, either as a DAO or either as, giving this kind of sense of ownership to the users could be very important, of course, to develop your game. And also, of course, I think what people care is not about whether you use blockchain or not, but it's about, having or creating like great users experience. And in the back, as Matt mentioned, we still have this whole 1.5 billion gamers out there who are not getting on blockchain games just yet, especially on mobile. And this is something that can be definitely realized through the partnership, let's say, potentially among you guys up to this panel. So I think that's a lot of thoughts, to take away from this panel. And thank you guys so much for your time today. And I hope that the audience can get something out of this. And we look forward to, of course, working with you more to reach the game 3.0 in the fastest phase possible. Okay, thank you very much, guys. And thank you to the audience as well.
Thank you so much for your discussion. And I would like to invite you to step to the front and receive the gift from the organizer.